Welcome to Mangia Kitchen. I'm Suze Montgomery, your host, and you can find us here on YouTube, and you can also find us on email at mangiaventura@gmail.com with any questions or that you might have on a recipe or anything you want to know about food. If I know it, I'll answer it. If I don't know it, I'll send it to somebody else. We're going to start today with this show, which is a few of my favorite things. And I was doing this the other day and I thought to myself, not a lot of people use this kind of equipment, but it might help you in the kitchen to make your job in the kitchen easier, more streamlined. So I decided to bring in a few of my things that I really love to use. This one I think is pretty common for a lot of people if they don't have one. This is a bench knife. It's got a sharp edge, but it's not sharp enough to cut you. But I use this mostly for dough scraping and cutting portions of dough to make like a pie crust or maybe a loaf of bread. This is actually worth buying. Now you can buy these at like Michael's or something like that. Or I got this one at a thrift store. And this one's a little sturdier than most. It's not as flimsy as a lot of them are. But I think you would really use this as scooping up food. And this is another trick that I use all the time. This is a really good tool. Another one, my favorite whisk. I've got tons of whisks, but this is my favorite. This is a little guy that can make really good sauces and really good soups or any kind of a slurry, which is like a flour water or flour milk type of an arrangement to actually thicken a soup with cornstarch or something like that. This guy is valuable. I think this one came from a thrift store too, but you can buy them. This one, instead of buying one of those great big, like Mafter, my mandolin that I have, you can buy just a box grater. Now, if you look at this closely, on the sides, it does everything a mandolin would do. Like if you don't even need zesting. This is for zesting. This is for potatoes. This is like making wide cuts. This is another one for cheese grating, another cheese grater. These things are really, really cool, and they're not expensive. So don't buy a bunch of expensive equipment. Just buy something like this, an old box grater. But you got to be careful, because I'm notorious for doing this. When I use a box grater for potatoes, generally speaking, I end up with all the skin on my fingers. Just watch what you're doing instead of talking to your friends. Okay. This is another thing that I use extensively. This is actually used with my mezzaluna. Mezzaluna is a bowl that I have with my grandmother that gave me when I was a kid. And it cuts back and forth. So it's a very sharp blade, and that's why it's got a protector on it. And you can cut things like a knife would be. It's very, very sharp, and it can be sharpened. I use mostly, this one is from Germany. I happen to like German knives the best. I've got a couple of Japanese, but they don't seem to be as good as my German knives. And if you invest in a really good knife, it'll last you a lifetime. Just don't put it in the dishwasher. I use a paring knife and an 8 or 10 inch Santoku or a chef knife. That's all you need is just a couple of them, but buy good. They will last you forever. And don't let anybody borrow them either. Spice grinders, otherwise known in a past life as marijuana grinders. You can actually use these, I think that's what they were really made for. They come apart in 3 pieces, and you can put, I guess marijuana seeds in here or something like that, or maybe the herb itself. Or you can actually use oregano, dried spices, and grind up spices. Even nutmeg you can use in this. And I've got a couple of these that I use really all the time. If you don't buy any of this other stuff in front of me, buy this. Now, I'm not getting paid to say this, but this is the best scissor you'll ever own. These are called Joyce Chen, C-H-E-N, and it's on the side here. And you can buy these. I think you can get them on Amazon. I've got a pair that I've been using for over 45 years. They never go dull. They never need to be sharpened. They can cut anything. I mean, paper, they can cut metal, they can cut herbs in your garden, they can do paper. I mean, these are a whiz. This is worth every dime. I think they were like under 30 bucks, and they're really, really worth it. So if you need some good kitchen shears, this will even spatchcock a chicken and a turkey. And spatchcocking is something we're going to be talking about later in another show, about how you can take a turkey or a chicken and cut the backbone out, flay it open, lay it down, and flatten it out, and then cook it that way. I've got a really good recipe using a buttermilk brine that I use to spatchcock. These are worth every dime. Now for my other thing. I use this in mortar and pestle. I use this for grinding herbs as well as I use this. This is really, it really gets, and it also looks really cool when you go to serve guacamole. But I actually use it for making like maybe pesto or guacamole. It's pretty heavy. It's made out of granite. You have to pre-treat it. It's very smooth. I put a whole bunch of rocks at the bottom with salt, rock salt, and made them really smooth. So the bottom is smooth, this is smooth. And you just rinse it off. You don't use soap and water on this. And there's our cat in the background. Hello, Mackie. So another new toy I've got is this one. I don't even know who makes it, but it's got a serrated edge. It actually lifts up and it drains. And this end can be used as well. And then the other one is my favorite new piece that I got at a thrift store. I'm afraid you can't buy these. But it's kind of flexible, but it scrapes out bowls really well on either side. But it's made by Chef N, C-H-E-F apostrophe N. So I guess it really is made for the kitchen. I didn't know that. I just thought I'd use it in the kitchen. But cheap. If you do a lot of baking, and if you do a lot of cooking, I was taught in culinary school to use the metric scale. We in America don't use the metric scale. We're too dumb to get it. In 1972, Ronald Reagan, the president, you can read the eye roll, the president we had at the time decided that the whole country in the United States was going to go metric because every other country in the world is on the metric scale but us. What happened? We were too dumb to do it. We just rebelled and said no, so we don't use metrics. But my little kitchen scale, which is cheap here, does metrics and it does pounds. It does the regular scale, and you can zero it out and use it, and it's got a timer on it as well. Kitchen scales are invaluable, especially if you're measuring anything like flour and adding more things to like salt or maybe yeast to the recipe. Put everything in the bowl, and you can use a lot of recipes that are European in origin. Use a scale, and it's very helpful. Now these are not exactly kitchen equipment, but I use them as that. I do stacked food. For example, I'll take like an eggplant and I'll cut it in like a globe eggplant, the big ones, the big fat guys, not the skinny guys. And I will cut this in the eggplant, and then I would fry it in maybe some olive oil, a little bit of garlic, and then make a stack with tomatoes, zucchini, eggplant. And you can stack the food in here. Make sure you lubricate the inside with olive oil or something like that, and then you can just lift it up and you've got one of those beautiful stacked foods that you see in all the fancy magazines in the expensive restaurants. You can do a smaller version. I do the smaller version with desserts. And then again, you can do ice cream, you can do a layer of cake, you can do a layer of whipped cream. You can make desserts with this. These are at your local hardware store for 99 cents a piece. I mean, you can look like a pro and for very little money and just learn how to do them. There's probably a YouTube for that as well. Okay, another mortar and pestle. This one's a little bit more sturdy as well. This one's from Germany. This is made out of cast iron. I happen to like cast iron real well. And this is a very deep bowl. So if you're using this to grind up spices, dried spices, you really need one with high sides on it. Otherwise, they'll come flying out and hit you in the face. So try using that. My biscuit cutters, and I keep them all hooked together here. They're a little rusty from old age, but hey, they still work pretty good. Got a sharp edge, and I can cut anything from a donut to a large biscuit or to a tortilla. that I will fry and make into a basket to hold like maybe a small salad or maybe an appetizer. Moving on. Here's a trick for you. Vanilla. Vanilla doesn't look like anything that's unusual, but here's the trick to it. If I can open the top up, here we go. The top is exactly this cap, 1 teaspoon. So if you don't want to whip out your measuring spoons and get them all dirty because it's only 1, use the top from all these plastic bottles like this, which is exactly 1 teaspoon. So then you can use it and put it back on the thing. You don't have to wash anything. I'm all about not washing them, by the way. Moving on. We're not done yet, just when you think you're done. Bought a new spider. This is for lifting like maybe something that's deep fried out of the, or anything else that's out of a deeper pot, like a cast iron skillet or something. I like this size of this one. It's really handy. And here's my best hint of the day. I saved this best for last. Check this out. I don't know how many years I've been doing this until I figured this out on my own. It was probably too logical for me to think of it. But when you go to the store and you buy fresh herbs, say it's parsley or cilantro, you bring it home and how do you store it? Well, most people will just put it in a plastic bag, and after about 3 or 4 days it dies, you know, it just wilts. It's kind of like this. It becomes, excuse the word, flaccid. So I don't do that. Instead, I figured out how to do this. What I do is bring it home, wrap it in wash it first in a dry paper towel, and put it in the dry paper towel, which is back in this plastic thing. Keep it sealed like this in the refrigerator. This will last in this container 2 weeks. They don't go bad. Otherwise, they get slimy and they get bad, and then you throw it out. You use it for one recipe. That's not cost effective. You want something that you can keep, and it always stays good. I mean, look at it. They stay fresh, and it's dry. There's no moisture in this container at all. So, those are my helpful hints for today, and some of my favorite toys. And stay tuned. We're going to do some cooking shows, and if you haven't subscribed already on YouTube, hit that little button at the bottom. It's free. You can watch all of our shows, and we're going to be doing a whole lot of these. Some are funny, some are irreverent, some are inappropriate, but they're always something you can learn and you can cook. We'll see you again. Join the Mangia Kitchen and subscribe to YouTube. Thanks for joining us.